It's no secret that we live in a consumer culture. But like that frog in the gradually warming pot, we don't really sense the degree to which we engage in consumer rituals and liturgies all the time. And through these habits, our perception of reality is shaped, and so is our understanding of who we are. In our daily lives, our identities are being turned in directions other than toward Jesus Christ and His kingdom. Our culture works to instill in us a consumer identity. A consumer identity refers to the way in which individuals are primarily seen and defined by their role in the economic system. This is a far cry from thinking of ourselves as image bearers of God, stewards of creation, worshippers of the King of everything, and lovers of our neighbors. These are some of the things that a kingdom identity is. There are all kinds of cultural liturgies that reinforce the idea that we are mere consumers. What rituals? You might be surprised at how many consumer rituals we regularly act out. All kinds of them involve the so-called coffee culture. And the tea people, they have their rituals too. I just don't know what they are. But coffee, I get that. The daily first cup. It's the same coffee, at the same time, in the same place, with the same people, right? And not with any people at all if your first cup is at the Starbucks drive-thru and you drink it alone in your car on your morning commute. If this is the case, I've got a video coming just about you. We have a different ritual for the second cup and another for the third. We have weekly coffee rituals as well. I do coffee differently on Saturday, but it's the same every Saturday. And Sundays are a different ritual still. My wife and I have a different coffee ritual when we get into the car for a trip into the city. As we leave the house, I go into the Starbucks app and go to the previous orders. I hit that and pay and pick up our coffee before we get onto the freeway. And all these rituals revolve around the consumption of a single product. Lots of people have shopping routines, specific stores, browsing certain aisles. Some people shop when they feel a certain way. They have a consumption ritual for when they are sad, another when they are angry with their spouse, and so on. I don't shop on Amazon much, but a lot of people have set liturgies around online shopping. If you have time, tell us about those in the comment section. There are cultural consumption liturgies around the food we eat. The routine of choosing, preparing, and consuming meals is often influenced by brand choices and advertising. Diet Coke goes on sale in a regular pattern. I know this because I married a Diet Coke drinker. I still don't know how people can stand the stuff. When it comes to food, we find a blatantly obvious connection between consumer habits and identity. I am a vegan. I am a locavore. I am into organic, paleo, keto, plant-based, a raw foodist, a flexitarian, a mindful eater, a foodie, a convenience seeker, or a sugar-free consumer. See how one's identity is formed and reinforced by consumption? Then there's subscription services. These are monthly consumer rituals. Our culture has developed an annual consumer calendar to replace the Christian one. I made a video about that. Do you get excited about product launch events? That's probably just the console gamers and the Apple people. So I guess many of you are off the hook on that one. Participation in loyalty programs, collecting points, and redeeming rewards are consumer rituals aimed at fostering brand loyalty. And speaking of brand loyalty, we see branding and logos all over the place. The repeated encountering and recognizing logos and jingles and brand imagery contributes to a consumer ritual of brand identification and loyalty. You may not remember this, but we used to wear clothes that were just clothes. And then we invented t-shirts onto which we could put things that we liked. Peace sign, a smiley face, or I Heart New York. Or other things like these things. Now we buy t-shirts and purses and caps and pants that are blatant advertising for the company that made the product. And we pay a lot of money for them. Have you thought about what this means? Somehow these companies have convinced us that it's incredibly cool to be their sandwich boards. At some point I may have the opportunity to offer this beauty for purchase on my YouTube channel. And social media. This one's huge. Try not to look at your phone while you're waiting for something or someone. Try not to take your phone into the bathroom. Under those circumstances, I get a little angry if I don't have my phone with me. That's because these habits are so incredibly embedded, not into our minds or hearts. They are in our guts and bones. What's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning? Look at the phone? That's a ritual, and it sets the pattern for your whole day. It's starting every day as a consumer of images and information and stimulation. What's the last thing you do at night? Consume images and information and stimulation? The habitual scrolling and liking and sharing on social media platforms? All the time we spend doing that is spent consuming. But then comes Sunday. Sunday is the day of counterformation, and what we do in church is supposed to bring us back to the truth of who we are, to remind us of the real, of reality. It's the place where we engage in rituals that reestablish our identity as stewards and image bearers, members of the body of Christ, lovers of our neighbor, to name just a few. But is this what the Sunday service really does? Engage in rituals that remind us who we are? Yes, of course. But to what degree? Do we do it enough to counter a whole week's worth of consumer rituals? In many churches, especially those with a contemporary flavor, we pick up a cup of coffee on the way in lobbies that look a lot like Starbucks. Then, in a lot of churches, we make ourselves comfortable in seats that were designed for a theater. And then one of the first things that we hear from the front is, "Thank you for choosing to come to church today." All this reinforces the idea that we are consumers. And then we participate in what looks a lot like a music concert. And that music sounds a lot like the stuff that we consume in our car and on our devices. And most of the people in the band look a lot like the people in the music videos. And what kills me is that not just a few of the singers have blatantly adopted the vocal stylings of a particular pop singer, I'm guessing one of their singing idols. All this reinforces the idea that we are consumers. Does it sometimes feel that our role in the Sunday service is that of audience, passively consuming a production? This will be a danger when we design a church service to be familiar and culturally relevant. It's not a bad thing, but we should pay attention to what we're doing. I worry that contemporary Christian liturgies are not robust enough to push against the liturgies of the dominant culture that we live in all week, especially when we invite a bunch of secular consumer liturgies into the church service. This video was just about liturgies of consumerism and how they shape our consumer identity, both in and out of church. If you want to think more about identifying and counteracting secular liturgies in our Sunday service, join me here when we talk about some ways that we might strengthen Christian liturgies in our contemporary worship. If you'd like to think about getting more Christian liturgies into your daily life, Tish Harrison Warren's book, The Liturgy of the Ordinary, is awesome. I strongly recommend it. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.